Next topic, types of protection and their benefits. Now, I'll start with you, Richard. Obviously, we can see along the desk here various different types of armour. Can you just explain to the viewers exactly what these are for?
Yeah, sure. So I've laid these out really for a reason. So we've got a bit of a hierarchy in terms of how product can be built for different purposes. So we can start with products that are incredibly thin, incredibly flexible, and these are ideal for situations where you're wearing lifestyle gear. You're going for short rides, you want to be comfortable, you don't want any bulk, you want to be able to get to your destination, get off the bike and actually be able to move around without feeling like you're restricted. So these sorts of armour, in terms of like the Ghost armour and our new Diablo, which is our new injection moulded grade, is all about that flexibility and comfort. So you don't know you're wearing it. So these products have a huge basis in the general population, because most products that are sold are to be used a lot. They're not just a trophy item. So a lot of them are going to be ridden in and then also walked in and kept on as much as possible. They've evolved from more traditional, standard, pre-curved foam products, which do a great job, but they can be improved in terms of their thickness, even though we're already pushing boundaries here, passing the hot and the cold standard in this particular LP1, but we're at 10 millimeters and now we can get down to level 2 items at 6 millimeters. So we're really making strides in terms of how the product performs as well as feels. So that then moves forward onto larger protections. So this is a racing knee. You can probably tell it's got an asymmetrical knee coverage. It can be worn on either knee. So either on the inside knee, if you wanted that to be gripping against the tank, or if you prefer to have it on the outside of the bike, on your right knee, from impacts that might come there, or when you're getting your knee down, depending on your suit. So this sort of size of product gives a full knee and shin coverage down to the boot. If you've got a proper racing boot, it'll be coming just to the toe here. And so you've got protection really from your foot all the way up to the top of your knee. So everything from a Ghost protector up to our LP2 racing products, they're all designed to do a certain job using a different material, different process. And then all the way to our back protection, which is our Viper Air. And again, these are our bread and butter products. So these are the ones that every jacket should have. Every rider should be wearing, whether it's a scooter in town or whether it's on a GP bike. You've got to be wearing a decent back protector. And this one is a level 2 as well, which is quite remarkable considering the weight and the flexibility of it. So yeah, lots to talk about, but it's all good.
Now, when I started racing, which was 90s,
Black and white.
I know what you're saying, I don't look that old. But no, seriously, body armour then was kind of, a majority of it was, let's say, cheaper. It was like a hard shell, a plastic type. What is the main difference from then to now?
Yeah, it's that evolution from the start of soft armour that we helped pioneer back in the early noughties. Taking over from the fact that in the older armour systems, it was essentially an EPS, polycarbonate plastics, and that was it. That was the best that you could do. You could maybe put it over some cheap packaging foam, some EVA, but that was your protection system. It was plastic with a bit of foam. We can get to the point where we can have a high performance foam system that performs better without having a shell. It gives you better movement. You get breathability, because obviously when you've got big plastic shells all over you, you're not going to breathe, it's not going to move nicely. So we can improve comfort. That's the biggest step. So we've made a product that's actually safer and more comfortable as well. So it's a win-win. And then there's obviously areas where you could need resistance from things like roost on a motocross bike, that we can then add shells in certain ways to our products to give that penetration resistance from debris as well. So best of both worlds.
Now, development is here, at base, at D3O base. And obviously a lot of the testing is done here as well, which we've experienced earlier on downstairs. Paul, when these go out to different boards to be tested, how vigorous is that?
The standard sets a number of parameters that have to be assessed. Sizing, protective coverage being one, and impact performance, which of course is the headline test, being a critical factor. The standards as I said earlier, they set a minimum threshold, but it's one that all manufacturers can work to and work beyond. They can actually make better products. The unfortunate thing is that there comes a point where technology advances so much that those advances aren't recognised in the standard. There isn't space for them to occupy, and that's why standards have to be reviewed. I mean, I can go back to circa 1983 when I was manufacturing motorcycle clothing, and the armour that was available then was highly rudimentary. It was a couple of layers of EVA foam or that sort of material. And the advances we've seen over the years, particularly accelerated by the standard, but also the number of road riders who are now wearing armour that was previously the preserve of racers. That's been immensely beneficial and highly noticeable. You can't buy a product now really without armour being present. It's available, but the buy-in from the consumer, from the road-going consumer, has been tremendous. That's all down to the standards. They can always improve, yes, but I think the impact, no pun intended, of the standards is immense.
You know, I've had a huge experience of crashes through a racing career, you know, getting on for 200 crashes. From your world, John, obviously within the media, you're involved in various press launches as well as other things in the industry, but you don't just wear sports clothing or race clothing, leathers and so on. Sometimes you have to wear different leisure wear, probably a little bit less safer, I would say, in my opinion, than full leathers. Yeah. Is it much easier for you now with this range of
Absolutely.
armour?
Yeah, way easier. I mean, my first crash was, I was in leathers, and actually I was wearing a back protector, and it's quite pertinent to this. I slid back into a curb, jumped the curb, and ended up in the bushes. And it's only like seeing the technology thinking, that was probably quite lucky I had that. But yes, there's a lot of option within armour, and if people want to understand it, they can. But the differences between something like this isn't just down to its size and its impact performance. It can be down to temperature requirements and how it can perform in different temperatures. But the fact is that most of the time, when I wear what I want to wear, if I'm just riding for myself, I'm generally in riding jeans and a jacket. And I like stuff like this. I always aim for level 2 armour because the performance of the stuff is now there without it being thick and bulky. And I often, like with my wife, will ride into London and spend the day walking around, and I want to be able to wear the same jeans that I rode there in and not have to get changed in a car park. So yeah, it's much easier now, and I'll do launches, and I'm far from the fastest on launches. I'm not up there with people, whether you're leading them or some of the riders there, but it's still, there can be bits where you're thinking this could get sketchy, and I have something that I feel I have confidence in this kit because of the certification standards and because of manufacturers making various kit that is at least meeting the minimum requirements of those higher levels. Yeah, there's far more choice out there, and if people want to understand it, they can get good stuff, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. When people buy stuff in a shop, they can work out if it feels comfortable, if the armour's in the right place, and if they know what they're looking for, they can look at what the armour is. But standards help people assess what protection it could potentially give in a crash. And that's why it's so important for people to understand it and be able to make that choice themselves. But yeah, much easier now, it's good.
That's obviously you're in a different world, racing.
Yeah.
You know, completely different to the leisure side. However, with this D30, how important is it for you to have something as thin as possible or as manoeuvrable and kind of easy movement within your suit?
It's massive. We don't really have time to sit still on a bike, so obviously you have to move so much now, especially also since the riding has moved on since your day as well. The movement on the bike now is massive. To have something that, you know, protects me as well as it does if I do have a big crash, and you can do that with it, you know, it's a massive thing now. And I think the way it's moved on, if it keeps going and, you know, something that protects you like this, it can get even smaller, you know. I think over the years, seeing what these guys have done in the factory today and see how they make it, I think it will gradually get smaller and smaller.
with that, Richard, you know, obviously this, just looking at this, is quite thick compared to, let's say, the new Diablo, the injection molded armour. Is the plan to go thinner and thinner with racing armour?
Yeah, there's a bit of a Goldilocks zone of it, there. You can make it too thin, so that you need to get a nice balance between comfort, safety, and that the premise. We could make a back protector thinner, and we will, but there is a point where we will stop, because you want to be able to feel safe. And if we made everything too thin, too light, there is a point where you're riding and you don't quite feel, as John was saying, you need that confidence in your kit. So I think there is a boundary to where we would stop to ensure that it worked perfectly. And that's something that we're well on the way to doing. Certainly in our limb ranges, we're already there. And with the new Viper as well, with the different standards as well. So we've got a different standard for the limbs as for the back. So we have to use a different striker, different anvil. So that product will be engineered differently to the limbs. But at the moment, yes, that's a nice thickness for most people's riding requirements. But it's good to remember that they can be too thin, and you forget you're wearing it completely.
Now, things like the Diablo, obviously it's very thin. How thick is that?
This is the level 1, so this is a 6.5 mil.
6.5 mil. So the development that goes into that, does that kind of cross over into workwear and various other industries you're involved in?
Not so much, no. I mean, in terms of the thickness of products that go across our different sectors, we move out of EN 1621, which is the motorcycle standard.
I guess it's whether people would want to know this.
It's just with it being so flexible and
Yep.
thin and easy to move in.
Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. So if we're making workwear gloves, for instance, obviously we've already pioneered a material that is thinner and softer than the incumbent TPR material that's on those gloves. So that's already been beaten, and we will do that in different areas of our remits. So yes, in terms of our mantra of becoming softer, more comfortable, more flexible, absolutely. That is something that we will push over into other sectors to try and improve comfort.
Richard, where do you look for, as far as development goes and future products? Do you look at influencers? Do you just generally look at the public perception?
It's a mixture of where the market's going and where it's heading. Is one part. So we look at what the trends are in apparel, look at what is going to be requested a few years down the line. That's one way of looking at it. And the other way is going from what technology is in front of us that we can utilise that is going to be manifested into a motorcycle product that's going to be better. So if we get some new material and new testing through that shows that we have a new grade of material that is performing off the charts in a certain parameters, we will then take that in-house and say, how would that work in a back protector? How would that work in a limb or a chest or whatever product it is? Those two avenues kind of work hand in hand. So it's what tools do we have on the table in that time, and then also where do we want to be in a few years' time? So the fit and forget style of armour is the current trend. That's where the majority of brands are wanting to push towards, is a better fit, a closer fit, less thickness, but without any trade-offs. So still level 2, still breathable, still soft. And that's a challenge. So that's what we've managed to succeed with our new range. And then we have to go with, obviously, the different brands have different feelings, different thoughts, different requirements. So each brand will be dealt with differently to try and adhere to their products. Different markets want different things, etc. So it's a bit of a mix, but inherently it's what we've got on the table in terms of materials and technology versus what the market is needing as well. So if there is something that I think we could do that is not yet out there that is better, then that's what we'll do. That's what we'll make. So it comes from me down to the team to push for better products, enjoying our rides more, being safer. That's pretty much it.